Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Casino Royale from 2006, directed of course by the legendary Martin Campbell, and yes, the 21st James Bond film in the franchise. So once again, Bond is back, finally. We are here once again, and we are back, of course, to discuss the debut film of Daniel Craig as James Bond, and yes, this is of course marking the beginning of so many things, and of course this being essentially the prequel to the other Bond films. Of course, the original novel that Ian Fleming, wrote, of course, and for many years it just didn't happen. This film, of course, we had the parody, unofficial Bond, but we won't get into that. In the '60s, but this is essentially the beginning, of Bond. Seeing the roots of Bond, and before we go any further, of course, we will discuss. This film in great detail. So there will be spoilers in this discussion. So if you haven't seen this film, as always, just a friendly notice. Perhaps watch the film first and then come back to this discussion. And also another note. This could go on for it could be longer, it could be shorter than my other Bond reviews. We will see. Just as long as I say everything I have to say, and that is it. It will not indicate my love for the film, based on the length of the review. That never happens. For me, this is a truly special film, and I think, but the length, regardless of the length, it's just a case of will I be able to say all I have to say, and that is, what will happen here. It could go on for a while. It could be my longest review yet for the Bond reviews, but yes. With all of that said, once again we are back, and I watched this a month ago now, actually. Around about 4 weeks ago. So it's been kind of a 4 week gap in between, reviewing this, and of course reviewing Die Another Day, and that's kind of fitting because there was a 4 year gap between the actual films, and I think very fitting indeed. I think I guess I was simply too blown away, and you're finding the time to. And the tone, the mood, of course, to sit down and talk about this film again. It was maybe a bit of a challenge, but here we are, and that's all that matters. And yes, I'm glad, I let all the emotions and the intricacies set in, I guess. So yes, I watched this as part of my 2 weeks kind of birthday celebration. As I always say, kind of 2 weeks in August that I watch or rewatch, of course, many of my favourites, and I guess this is saying that is kind of a spoilers, for kind of my rating, of course, but it's one of my favourites, no doubt. For me, this is truly a special achievement. What this film means to me, I can't describe really, but I'll do my best. I guess. And, this film here, for me, it's part of my life, really a way of life, and I saw this when I was around 10. I had seen, after that, I've seen the other Daniel Craig's in the cinema. We don't know about the next entry, what will happen with that, but I have seen Quantum of Solace, Skyfall Inspector in the cinema, and it's always been an event, but this one was just as much an event, and even more so because I watched this on DVD for the first time around about 10, of course, just after it came out, and yes, my family bought the DVD, and we watched this, and I just remember being completely entranced and blown away, and really just there was this kind of this strange feeling, this very intense feeling that this is not quite the Bond that I had seen, but really spiritually it was, and it took me many years, rewatches, to even be able to express certain things that I feel about the film, and that is a testament to how legendary this piece of cinema is. And actually, for me, we'll say it right now, this is the only Bond film for me that is up there. It's on the level, and every bit as good, really, in many regards. Really, it's on the level with On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and I never say that. That is the highest praise I can give any action film, really, because that is very nearly to the top of my kind of the mounting of just action cinema for me, and I think it shares many qualities with that film, and for example, the tragic elements, the blending of a love story, action, thrills, espionage, comedy, and just poetry, fantasy, actually, and also a brutality and real daring, in its story elements in the way. Then both of these films pan out. They are very, very similar, a bit different, of course, but really they are the true best Bond films for me, and they are some of the absolute greatest films in the history of cinema for me. I would say that, and I'll say it now. Both of these films, are definitely in my top 50 of all time, and it took me a while, to compile, my top 100. I still am changing this, as I go along. But these films, I can certainly say they are in my top 50, and this film here, of course, being, once again a Martin Campbell film, of course, one of my other childhood favourites, being GoldenEye, and he came in to kind of deliver such a masterpiece. That is one of my top 100 films of all time. But Casino Royale, let me just say, tops GoldenEye in every single way. I feel personally, and just really outshines it. And that is very, very strange. Martin Campbell just coming in again to kind of deliver a film that just tops GoldenEye in every regard, and it's just so mind blowing, this film. But it's the spirit of this film. It's the emotions and what this is doing. In a nutshell, you can say it's a love story. It's a tragedy, as we know. It's a an energetic action film. It's a kind of dissection of the Bond character. Seeing him form. But yes, I think just in a nutshell, we can say all these things. But this film, to sum it up, progression, and that can be said for every single element in this film. The score by David Arnold, for me, this is his absolute greatest score, and that is, saying something, of course. And for me, just like Goldfinger and On Her Majesty's Secret Service, these two for definite, it's one of the 50 best scores in all of cinema. And there we have it, one of my top 3 Bond scores, and this is just absolutely mind-blowing. But progression, the style, the tone, the emotion, the action, the character, the universe, and just the entire film in its soul. Progression, this is what it is. It progresses in every single regard, all seamlessly, all at once. This is genius cinema. This is poetic. This is tragic. It's brutal, honest. It's so daring, this film, and it's thrilling. It's funny, and this is, without necessarily, obviously, perhaps to some, being a true Bond film, in that sense. It is, in its core, the bones of Bond, it's all here. This is so much, to me, anyway, and of course many other people, it seems, this is a Bond film, and, without necessarily appearing, as a traditional Bond at first, actually, it always has been for me, without really realising some of the first instances of watching this film. It always has been a traditional Bond. It just takes a while, perhaps, sometimes, to truly realise how and why, and just how much it is. And I think, in general, this film, this is very classical. This film, in the way it's shot, perhaps the editing at times not so much, but other times very much. Through the sophistication of this film, the script, the music in this as well, the score by David Arnold, as I've said, one of the absolute greatest in all of cinema. But as it goes on, this, for example, the track Vesper, City of Lovers, this is, very much, as well, calling on John Barry scores, even just other Bond, not just Bond films, but there are some other John Barry scores, which we won't necessarily mention in a Bond review, but there are certain melodic moments, motifs, very similar to some big John Barry scores, not necessarily being Bond scores, but this encompasses so much, this film, and when I saw this when I was younger, it became, every time I saw it, after, just a part of my life. It's always been one of my favourite films since I saw it, and there's such a kind of patience to this film, but instantly such an energy, a kind of ruthless feeling, and just, it really, this film does not hold back at all, but it has so much control. I think Martin Campbell here, on this occasion, this is one of the best directed films I've ever seen, and of course I've seen many films, but it's just my opinion. I think this really outshines most. I can say that most films I've ever seen, just like On Her Majesty, and if this wasn't a Bond film, I can safely say it would probably have even more praise in certain regards, perhaps critically. I think it's a shame. I think this franchise is very underappreciated, and perhaps there are a few, but really mostly most Bond films I don't think get the recognition. This film here is masterfully directed, shot and edited. The locations, seeing the Bahamas, just so many locations. Venice as well. It's such a wonderful film to look at. Again, in its sense of visuals, location, architecture, the capturing of this, and just the character working. This is completely, a classic film for me. It really is, and of course, very different as well. It's very different for a Bond film, but to see progression and to feel this, in its very nature, in its core, this is truly, actually truly special to behold. And of course, we have the opening sequence, as I was saying, and the atmosphere to this, the black and white. Just seeing this, it's just genius. And we have Bond, of course, gaining in this sequence his license to kill, and the 00 status that is confirmed, of course, within the credits. And then the first time we see Daniel Craig as Bond in colour is in the credits. How amazing is that? We have the black and white. We have this atmospheric From Russia with Love-like sequence with the atmosphere, the real disturbing feeling, just raising the hairs on the arms and just doing something in the brain. It really does. The dark feeling this has, and to see this brutality. This is very much one of the greatest opening sequences in all of cinema, leading into this epic gun barrel where actually we have the scene playing out. The turning round, of course. Before that we have considerably. The script of this is one of the best as well in cinema. But Daniel Craig, instantly becoming a legend, just from a few words here, some gestures, and just to see the looks on his face, and to see the stature. He is Bond, although not quite yet, as we know. But seeing this leading in the gun barrel into the credits, the Chris Cornell performed theme, one of the absolute greatest Bond themes ever made. I think this is up there once again with On Her Majesty's theme, and again, that's such high praise. But Goldfinger as well. These three for me are the best Bond themes, and again, I find this theme to be very underappreciated. I think it's just an epic, sophisticated as well, and quite very deep, kind of song here. But it's just an epic, pumping, kind of theme, and just the way in which this is saying something about the character. This is key here. What David Arnold is doing here is quite genius, to say the least. He's working in as well throughout this film. We must note, melodic moments of the Bond theme. As we go along, and Bond kind of becomes Bond even more. As he transforms and kind of becomes more and more of this character. We have these references, very subtle at times, other times very obvious moments in the background, just for a few seconds or so at a time, perhaps in different key moments that define this character, and him for the first time experiencing these moments, and of course hearing that, it's so wonderful. And of course, it has got so many of the classic elements here, but just not quite in the way that they would be expected. But once we have these titles ending, which just it shakes me. It really does. I have a smile on my face when I see the walking as well towards the camera. Daniel Craig slightly being revealed, and then he really is. This is epic. And of course the title design is genius. This is art. This is stunning cinema here. Even just these two sequences we've mentioned, and we have the rest of the film. Wow, one of the longest Bond films as well. So you get so much in this. And every single scene for me is cinematic perfection. I am just in awe of this once again, and just talking on this. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, this film is just one of the greatest things I've ever experienced. I am just drawn into this world that I know, of course, but not quite in this way. As I say, very different film, but we see in the first act, Bond in Madagascar, finding these connections, these connections, these mysteries being revealed. Of course, once these sequences end, we have, of course, these wonderful, thrilling, epic action sequences, operatic, just genius, layered sequences with character working throughout. Every bit of action in this film is revealing more about the character. Every piece of music in this really is revealing more and about the character, about the universe. This is all connected. This is so intricate in design and the emotions that I get from every act as well. A little bit different at times, but you could say all as one as well. It's so perfectly realised, so all encompassing. But these opening sequences, the first act of the film is very much just epic and so investing, and it's a thrill. I had a smile on my face. I was just grinning. I was just, oh wow, just kind of my face was, I guess anyway, lit up once again. It's just always such a magical experience, seeing this film, and once again, just so great to see once you've seen many Bond films, and just maybe in quick succession going through them, of course, chronologically, once again, to really go back to the roots. And I always seem to be saying this, but it's the interview, the kind of or the video you can find on YouTube of Timothy Dalton talking about his portrayal of Bond, and the two films, of course, but his take on this, and where do we go? What really made the character, the series, great in the first place? And this seems to be always the case, a sense of deja vu with these reviews. But it seems at times maybe the series, and I love most Bond films, or like most Bond films, but sometimes it seems like it starts off with a debut, or it has a peak, and then maybe certain ones that follow could take these elements a bit too far, and it can lead itself astray and go in a particular direction that's just a bit too much, and it takes, once again, a real return to the form, a return to what made yes, as Timothy Dalton said, the series so great to begin with, and it always seems to be the hard hitting, as he said, nasty character, this ruthless, brutal killing, these instances, these attitudes, and just this feeling that really makes the investing Bond films. And I think just as I say in many of my reviews, I like the outlandish. I love sometimes the campy Bonds, but really the roots of the series has to have some kind of has to have just a couple of roots in this feeling, this brutality, this raw visceral feeling, and this power. Somewhere it has to be rooted in that, and of course it can branch off in different ways, but it doesn't need to kind of go far to the point of maybe more of parody form. And I completely get what he was saying in that, and I sometimes watch that just to kind of get that pumped up feeling, because the initial feeling of them Connery Bonds was like no other. And of course, I think the best Bond films, really stay close to the initial, this feeling of, not necessarily realism throughout the entire film, but just some kind of a particular, very particular, specific reality, and just brutality. I think ruthlessness, and this film here, it really captures that. But what this is doing is showing Bond before he was truly Bond, and before he was sophisticated, you could say, and he's kind of clumsy in the action sequences to begin with. He is this individual who is not essentially this perfect agent, really. He is very reckless, quite clumsy, lets his ego, as we know, get in the way of things, and I think a bit heavy-handed, we could say. And we see him with his flaws. We see, of course, as well, later on, once Act 2 starts to begin, we see the vulnerable side emotionally to Bond, and this opens up once Eva Green, as playing Vesper, in this film, our Bond girl, and a contender for the best, certainly one of the absolute, the top two for me, really, of course, and yes, only matched by the wonderful Diana Rigg, and yes, as Tracy in On Her Majesty, but seeing Vesper, this is just when the film really opens up. We see these initial, just thrilling pieces, in the airport as well, and the whole, Madagascar sequence, the chase sequences, of course, with the crane, the construction site there. This is just thrilling. I'm just on the edge of my seat, and just always revealing more about the character. I laugh at different moments when he falls. He's this kind of bumbling character, you could say. There's a clumsiness to it, there's a kind of the sense of, this is very, very dangerous. This character perhaps any point could slip, and he could falter. He is not this, as I say, this perfect agent in this film to begin with, and it really portrays this so perfectly, and in the score as well. But as I say, it develops as we go over the course of the film. We see more of this sophistication as the film goes on. The locations. The whole plot involving Le Chiffre escalates, as we know. Le Chiffre, for me, is one of the greatest villains in all of Bond, and Mads Mikkelsen in this film, is just perfect. I think just, of course, the actual character of Le Chiffre, this individual, very mysterious, has his quirks, who finances essentially acts of terrorism, and of course, the film, the central piece of the film is this high stakes poker game. This card game, in Casino Royale, of course, Montenegro, and he gets the suits, he gets this car, of course, that's just so wonderful, the Aston, once again, of course, he meets these characters, Mathis, once again as well, Felix Leiter in this film, played by Jeffrey Wright, and for me, Jeffrey Wright could be the ultimate Felix, actually. I love the humour in this. I love the kind of banter between him and Bond. I love the kind of warmth that he brings. Jeffrey Wright is just perfect in this role, and it'd be great to talk about him in the next films as well. But in this film, he is at his best, and I think just seeing all of these characters is centred around this poker game. This is just a very simple poker game, you could say, but the stakes are so much more than just the money, in a sense, of course. All the different kind of developments, key developments in this film, are intertwined with this game that lasts for quite a big portion of the film, and you could say, yes, it's in between, it's layered, it's intricate, it's kind of woven around this game, and we have the love story developing, we have the tragic elements, we have these very, very shocking moments as well, and this vulnerability, of both characters, Vesper and James Bond, and I think seeing the kind of tender relationship develop, it's all kind of in the middle act of the film, but we'll get to the final kind of 40 minutes or 30 minutes, very soon, because that really takes the series and the film to an even greater height, and they save one of the best scenes, at least, for last, we must say that, but seeing this, it's so thrilling, the way this poker game, shot, it's unbelievable, the editing here is just perfect, and I'm so invested in the characters. There's a mystery to these characters. Le Chiffre, being this character, very interesting indeed, and we don't really have much of a, he doesn't really give all up in that sense, in the way of emotions, until, his final scene where he is killed, just after essentially torturing Bond. Very strange happenings in this film, but seeing that torture scene as well, they actually inject so much comedy into that, and the kind of reactions, of course, by Daniel Craig. It is a hilarious sequence, also being such a disturbing and very affecting sequence, and I think it's very you could say a pathetic villain death, by what happens in this. He dies just after torturing Bond, and he dies in a very pathetic way as well, the way he is dispatched, and he is the main villain, and that's very, very bold to do, I think, and of course the way in which he doesn't really get introduced really properly until quite a bit into the film. This is very much a very unique structure, this film, and you know, what happens in the first 40 minutes, the next 40 minutes or so, and so forth. It's very, very different. It's a very unique mix, but it is all as one. This is such, you know, perfectly realised piece of cinema. It really is unbelievable. You know, just seeing this once again, you know, the spirit of this film. You know, it's such an uplifting film. You know, what this is doing with this love story, which we'll discuss. You know, rarely have I been so moved by a film in general, but you know, seeing this chemistry, you know, and you know, Eva Green, you know, just gives one of the greatest performances, you know, in Bond history. You know, I think she is just so perfect in this film as Vesper. You know, Vesper Lind, one of the greatest characters in Bond. You know, and just seeing the chemistry here between her and Daniel Craig, and just what happens in this film is so tragic, of course, and she essentially betrays Bond, but she doesn't really. You know, she's doing this to protect him, and there's this, you know, complexity through this outcome, and her dying, of course, in the whole kind of building sequence there. Her getting, you know, kind of trapped. You know, her trying to do this, and then, you know, the kind of regret on her face is so complex. And when I first saw that, you know, at the moment I didn't really know what to feel, and you know, every time since it's become more emotional. You know, it brings me to tears, this sequence, and what this is doing. This is shattering Bond as an individual, as a human, and the end of the film to do this in this way, I feel is on Her Majesty. And you know, that film, of course, you know, it's very different, but it is very much, you know, shares many similarities with this film, Casino Royale, and I think the level of emotion, you know, this is the true kind of connection here. Rarely have I been so moved, you know, by a film as with Casino Royale. You know, this film, just the tragedy of it, but you know, just the way in which after that, you know, Bond brushes off this death, you know, and then he really, you know, he just comes back and he fully becomes Bond. You know, it just, and which we'll get to in a few moments when the final scene plays out. You know, I think just I am shaking. My whole body is shaking. I get shivers up the spine and my face. I can't describe the expression I feel. You know, just when seeing this, the way it culminates and brings everything full circle. You know, in this film. And then the final resolve being, you know, Bond finally truly being formed. It's like no other film in the history of cinema. This is stunning to behold, but this second act, you know, is where it all kind of starts to really develop, and we have this poker sequence, which is just stunning, of course. Just seeing, you know, this kind of middle act, of course, you know, the comedy here, once again, just so hilarious. This film, you know, is a very dark film. It is a very sad film, of course, very brutal and very disturbing, but it does have such a perfect injection of comedy, and it really is just part of the natural, you know, feeling of this film, the structure of this film. Just the tone of it, it's so natural, organic. You know, everything in this film is, you know, it's so organic and true to the character and the universe. There's always been comedy in Bond, as we know, and you know, it just shows once again this is the way to do it. And you know, it kind of breaks, it eases the tension perhaps, but not quite, because it is so unbearable, this tension in this poker game sequence. You know, of course, and just. But you know, the whole kind of comedy here, establishing so many different elements that is kind of in this Bond universe, and has been for many decades before this film. Of course, the martini, and the kind of joke in that, you know, vodka martini, the kind of joke with the way he's saying this, and the different remarks by the characters. You know, and I'll have one too. You know, by Felix. You know, it's just priceless. It really is. And then of course, Mads Mikkelsen kind of bringing everyone back to this kind of. You know, just well, we quite finished yet. Kind of the kind of remark there. It really is, you know, such a comedic film. But you know, in the end, it's everything. You know, this is what it is. It's comedy. It's kind of, it's thrills. It's energy. It's magic, charm. There is such a class to this film as well. The outfits, you know, it's just remarkable. You know, Daniel Craig. Let's just quickly, you know, mention on this and discuss. This was, you know, a role, of course. a portrayal that was not met, initially with much positivity, of course. And he was initially approached in 2005 for this role, of course, and he took quite a bit of persuading. I hear from the producers, etc. And of course, just it took a while for him to come round. Eventually, when he did accept, there was a lot of kind of a backlash, to this, which we'll kind of just bring up, in the sense of, it's part of, the kind of the initial beginnings of this film before it actually released, and then of course, seeing Daniel Craig, I think most people grew to kind of be like, oh wow, this guy really can, can be Bond. He really can be, and I think. For the record, Daniel Craig, I'm just talking on this film. I'm not talking about Spectre, Quantum of Solace, or even Skyfall. But this is the film we're reviewing here. But in Casino Royale, in this film here, in his debut, this, I think this performance here, essentially Daniel Craig, to me, is the consistently. We won't maybe include George Lazenby because again, one film, but consistently, perhaps for an actor who played. The character in more than one Bond film, I think Daniel Craig is the true successor to Sean Connery, and in that sense, he is, apart from Connery for me, consistently, who is in multiple films, I guess, the greatest, he is the true, kind of one who is passed on this role and perfects it, and really is truly more than, as much as I love every Bond actor, Daniel Craig as Bond, is just, he is up there with Connery, and particularly in this film, I think it's absolutely one of the greatest performances of all time. I think he is just capturing the kind of the charm of Bond, the physicality of Bond, the humour of it, I must say, and also just this brutality. He knows the danger of this character, of the universe, of the attitude, and just he knows the style of this, the suave attitude, of course, the way he just presents himself, the way he dresses, but just as well bringing out the human side of Bond, like the best performances do. And I think just seeing the character, it's not quite maybe not kind of Bond at first, and then as the film goes on, the organic progression, the gradual build up, and the gradual becoming the true Bond, by the end of this, this is something to behold. This is majestic, this film. The performance here is so stunning, of course, as well. You see the emotional side of Bond, the vulnerability of Bond, and the way in which, through other characters, through this love story, this beautiful love story, one of my absolute favourites in all of cinema, we see how Bond can be affected in this way, and again, very few Bond films have done it in this way, but there has been some, or just one for me that is on the level, and as we've discussed, but, the reactions, and we go on to the final act now. We see, of course, the kind of dispatching, of our villain of the film, and then we move, to these locations, these beautiful locations, and this final act really. It feels like a dream, and it really just focuses purely on this romance, this love story, and the betrayal, though, in a sense, but not quite, as we know, Vesper and the kind of inevitable tragedy that kind of follows, and of course, we see, though, just before this, we see the wonderful scenes with them just, just such an affecting romance, this, but, this pure love story, the way it's captured, and acted, of course, it's just something to behold. I would say this is definitely one of my favourite, kind of 25 or so favourite romances in cinema history. It's just up there with On Her Majesty, of course. As I've said, these are the two best romances in Bond for me. The true love stories. I can't quite say that about every other Bond film, but these two, they really are proper love stories, and they are so affecting in the way that both of these films are tragic as well. And but you see these uplifting moments. You see so much joy in this, in the interactions. They truly love each other, and then of course, when Vesper, kind of dies in this film, I'm just I am broken, like Bond is as well, in the narrative, I cannot believe this, the daring, the boldness to do this, and just the passion, the real passion, the warmth, and the heart of this film outshines, most of the Bond films for me, and I think just seeing the way this culminates, it really is monumental. This is an absolute legendary piece of cinema, and as I say, one of my absolute favourite films. But seeing this final act, and of course the score by David Arnold, this is when it really sets in. Of course, City of Lovers. This is one of my favourite tracks. Just pieces of music in cinema history, and just in any kind of art form, music. Just it's one of the best. It really, really is, and of course, so tied to the emotions, the feelings, the love of these characters, and the tragedy of these characters. So you can kind of put all this, and kind of infuse it in a particular, perhaps 3-minute track, and you are a genius to do this. David Arnold really, really delivered with this film, and congratulations, salute to this individual. He is drawing on, of course. It's more of a return to classic kind of John Barry, beauty in the scores, but also something very different. He captures, of course, at once the kind of energetic, danger to Bond, blasting through the wall, that kind of feeling, infused in the particular initial, piece of music, and then it becomes more sophisticated, more emotional, and more spiritual as the film goes on, ending with the names Bond, James Bond, the track, of course, accompanying the scene to end all scenes. Really, for me, it really is one of the moments. We waited so long to see the initial beginnings of Bond. This is the first time Bond, as we know, is saying these words in a scenario, and to witness that, the way it's executed, this is one of the treats. It's one of the gifts, and I'm so privileged to kind of experience this. I can actually experience this. Wow, what a feeling this film gives me. It's a pleasure, this film, to watch and to experience. The action, the characters, the world building. Judi Dench once again back as M, and she begins to kind of form this even more of a kind of spiritual and caring and just warmth in the kind of relationship with Bond. I feel the chemistry here, it's just as good, if not better, with Pierce Brosnan and Judi Dench, and that. Wow, to say that, it really is. It's something to behold. In this film, Judi Dench is exceptional. She really is. Of course, there is no Q, though it's very interesting. Of course, we must remark that. This isn't containing particular Bond elements, just a few, but the main core elements are here, and it's more than enough to be considered by me a true Bond film. Of course, there are some things missing, but it makes sense because it is the first, essentially, in the kind of storyline, and everything in the general sense of what do I love about Bond. I love action in Bond. I love the style of Bond. I love the coolness, the attitude, being an actual emotion. I love style being substance. Just like some of the great films. I love music. I love the exotic locations. I love the outfits. I love the characters. I love seeing this hero, this mysterious hero, who is, of course, very complex, very flawed, human individual, but someone who, always is this epic individual, and I love seeing a Bond film that has emotion, where you have a romance, a love story, and witnessing escapism, but also something you can draw on in some way. And this film here, Casino Royale, does it do these things? Does this deliver in these regards? That's an easy yes. That is an overwhelming yes, and that is absolutely. It's a film that really goes beyond what I want. What I expect from an action film. And this is, of course, one of the greatest action films ever made for me personally. The editing here is just, there's poetry once again, just like on Her Majesty, the way that was edited, of course. That was directed, of course, by Peter Hunt, being, of course, the previous editor on the Bond films. But the way that film was edited, there's a kind of a sharpness to it, a gritty, raw feeling, very jarring perhaps effect, but it is poetic in what it's doing there as well. It's poetic and raw at the same time. It's it's sharp, but also beautiful. And just to see this film, the way it's shot, some of the best cinematography I've ever seen. Just like on Her Majesty, these two are the best shot Bond films for me. But the editing is stunning. It's telling a story. It's saying something about the character in relation to environment, in relation to a particular time, in relation to a style and attitude, and just of course the way that Bond interacts with Vesper. This is the defining emotion of the film, and to see what Bond feels from what happens in this film is to witness one of the most emotional Bond films in all of cinema. We have the three acts of this film all leading so perfectly to the next. The narrative momentum in this film is off the charts, stunning, and just I am so invested in every single aspect of this film. It's just a true legendary film here, and it's just a beautiful film. The romance, it uplifts me. It brings me so much joy. Once again, like on Her Majesty, perhaps it's more fleeting than throughout the entire picture. In that film, of course, we have the beginning and the kind of later act where their two characters are together. In this film, the second act and the third act, Vesper is not in the first act at all. We have just seeing Bond and how he is this rough, kind of blunt instrument. That is the kind of the description of Bond. One of the tracks of the film, which is just epic, of course, as well. Just this blunt instrument becoming James Bond. That is the privilege to see in this film. And of course, what this film brings back as well, is this feeling of just when Bond is driving around in Goldfinger and on Her Majesty. These films, hearing the music and just seeing Bond driving, it's one of the magic feelings. I guess some of you watching will understand if you're Bond fans, but maybe you understand what I'm saying about this driving around, just going to different locations. This is just it is part of the narrative. It's essential to the experience, and it is part of the Bond universe. And it's one of these it's some of these magic moments I think of when when cinema comes to mind, which is all the time, of course, for me, or Bond comes to mind. These are some of the defining moments. Just Bond in these early films, driving around, the music in a particular way, the kind of suave class to these films. And this film here brings that back. It brings it once again into the kind of into the universe of Bond driving around. We have that blunt instrument kind of track there. We hear renditions, kind of forms of the kind of theme song, and also other kind of melodic motifs in this epic kind of score here. And it's just overwhelming, and it's just so thrilling and magical. It's such an uplifting film, this, even in that, just seeing Bond kind of investigating at first, this whole thrilling kind of piece, of course the airport sequence, so stunning. This is a perfect thriller action film, but it is of course so much more than that as well. At the same time, it's a true love story, it's a romance, it's a dissection of the character, but more of an organic showing of the progression of the character. Like no other film in this series, we see how Bond became who he is, what shaped him, and what the flaws that were maybe more evident before he truly became Bond. We see all this on display, treated with such dignity and class, sophistication, even when he is this blunt instrument, when he is this clumsy character, this kind of reckless individual, headstrong, letting his ego get in the way. We are seeing this treated with this dignity and respect for the character, for the fans, and just Daniel Craig bringing the humanity out, like few other actors have done with Bond for me, but on the level of some, a select few have done, in the past, including Connery and Lazenby. And yes, for me, Daniel Craig is a perfect Bond in this film. He delivers so much and more. And of course, Eva Green, she gives a beautiful performance. You know, the beauty of her, you know, it's just what a wonderful actress, of course, in this film here. She delivers one of the greatest performances of all time, as does, of course, Daniel Craig. Mads Mikkelsen plays at least one of the best villains I've seen. You have Jeffrey Wright, you have Jesper Christensen playing Mr. White as well. A very mysterious, pivotal character. We'll get to that, you know, very soon. He is the one that witnesses the first instance of our very famous line. But yes, so many performances and so many different characters. Mathis as well. You know, just what a, you know, just interesting character. You get the kind of the great moments, the warmth and the enjoyment of these characters together. You know, him, Vesper, and Bond. I love these moments when they're at the bar and you know, around the casino, of course, and just I love these moments. I love the interactions. You know, cinema for me is about human interactions. That's one of the things that I love about cinema, and the Bond series. You know, it's one of the you know, the kind of leading you know, creations in this sense. You know, its style, it's epic, and it's action pieces, but it is, you know, it's interactions, it's humanity, and through a particular lens. You know, a thrilling escapism piece. You know, this film here, I think the interactions are just so compelling. It's so interesting to see this whole universe and just these particular characters interacting, of course. And you know, just to see the scenes where Bond and Vesper you know, together, and you know, the initial moment when she breaks down after the killings, of course, you know, the stairwell fight, once again, a great piece in the score there, but seeing this, it's a shocking, dirty, nasty moment, as we know that, once again, going back to what Timothy Dalton said about the series, what made the character great, you know, this is what the character is, you know, this is what the character, you know, is at his heart. He, you know, this human, but this, at times, ruthless, brutal character who dispatches of his enemies, you know, in very much a very harsh way, and of course that shocks Vesper, and the human reaction from that, you know, is this kind of state of shock, and the comforting moments, the beauty of that scene there when Bond, you know, the shower scene there, and of course comforting Vesper. You know, these moments like this that just move me, uplift me. You know, see the kind of you know, the humanity of this, you know, is something to behold, and you know, it really is just so beautiful in every regard. You know, this is just, I mean, to see this film, you know, is a real treat. As I've said, the way the film is shot, the structure of the film is genius in every regard. All the elements, you know, of cinema, you know, every technique that is used to tell a story, you know, it's just off the charts, mind-blowing and wonderful, and of course so intricate, but so as well just surface level enjoyable. The kind of visuals, of course, the music, and just the comedy, of course, and just the action. You know, some of the best in the series. Just it seems like most of the action sequences top themselves. You know, as we go through the three acts of the film, three main acts, the three core action sequences, perhaps each time with more character, with more emotion, more meaning, and more consequence. Actually, you know, as we know, culminating, you know, in our final big action sequence of the film with the death of a Bond girl. You see what Bond can be, you know, as a tragedy, you know, and just as well as being epic, of course, majestic, operatic, and sweeping. And you know, I think, as I say, this really is the true contender, along with On Her Majesty, as you know, as the two best Bond films. I'll say that now. They are my favourites, absolutely, and very much on the level of one another. And you know, whatever happens when I, of course, some would know what I kind of, or some would be more of aware of what I would probably think, which is my favourite, you know, which is my second favourite. But regardless, I want to praise this film so much because it is the only other Bond film that comes close for me to that film. And you know, this film here is just in every regard, you know, a legendary piece of cinema. But just the writing to this film, I think, is so key here. The script, you know, it's giving these characters, and of course it is also down to the actors, of course. The casting is just spot on here. But you know, for example, Vesper is such a deep character. We learn this, of course, as the film goes on. You know, she isn't in the film, you know, until later on, perhaps, around the hour mark. But when she is introduced, she appears to be this very, kind of glamorous individual, and she makes some remarks to Bond, and it's so entertaining, and you instantly feel this connection. The mystery to Vesper, and the kind of way in which Eva Green, portrays this is so key, and but learning as we go on the real character traits, of this character Vesper. She's this caring individual. She is this such a nice individual, and it's all the more affecting that she is the one that dies as well. It's very so sad, but just to see this character in itself. Vesper is such an interesting character, and such a human character who is given so much development, and character and warmth, and I think dignity as well. She is a true it's just someone who is a true character, and I think obviously the chemistry with Daniel Craig is just so perfect. It feels like it just feels so real. This romance, but also so dreamlike and fantastical. It really is like a dream. Moments when they're together, of course, and the way it's captured is just it's unbelievable. Again, only ever one Bond film. Only one other Bond film, as I say, has captured this. But again, it's on the level. In this film here, the way this plays out, it is like a dream. It is this pure, feeling that I get from it, and of course, just the scenes. They're kind of in essence, on like a holiday together in that sense. They're just kind of interacting and going about, and just falling in love. It's such a moving film. This so emotional and so spiritual. What it's doing, for Bond, but also yes, for a Bond girl. It's just again shares qualities with one other Bond film in particular. But just to see this, Eva Green is so perfect. And just it's very interesting for the film to carry on in this way once the main villain is killed off, and we have quite a bit more of the film left of just these two characters, seeing the love, the purity to this, the kind of beauty of this, and the emotion of this, and the kind of the sadness as well, and seeing this, and then of course we have the final action sequences. This is after the villain has died, and that's very, very interesting, of course, very daring once again. But what we have is then the death of Vesper, and once again, just the tears, uncontrollable tears here, and just the feelings, of course, very undescribable. But then we have, coming towards the end of this discussion, then we have, as we know, we have the kind of line, and after because Bond goes to of course seek out Mr. White once again, and here we have it once again, Jesper Christensen playing Mr. White, and he of course he gets the phone call from Bond, and what we have here, of course, is the whole just before that we have very peaceful and contemplative moments, but you feel the whole film coming to a close, and we just have the room for one more perhaps epic moment, and we have this kind of calm before the storm, and in that sense the kind of showing the driveway, and just the trees swaying, of course, and the sun shining in a very particular way, and then of course we have the phone call, and him getting shot in the leg, and it's kind of a shocking moment, but also kind of a comedic moment perhaps, but then we have, of course, the camera moving in a very special way, and we see, of course, Daniel Craig emerging, and the character of Mr. White looking up, and then seeing there he is, all dressed up in this way, with the gun in hand, standing over Mr. White, and the line, the name's Bond, James Bond. I'm not going to do it in a particular way, but yes, we have this line, and it really just once again it really affects me. This moment is just uncontrollable, epic, legendary. It's just so fitting to see this at the end of the film, ending the film with this line, the line that everyone knows, has been in every Bond film until this, and has not been in this film until this point, the very ending shot. And yes, Daniel Craig delivering this line, and for me, it could be my favourite delivery of the line in the history of Bond. Actually, it's just so epic. And before I've even got the emotions of it, boom, done. End credits begins with the the kind of Bond theme kicking in, but the David Arnold rendition of this, it's just it's so unique. This one, it could be my favorite actually. The kind of the rendition, the kind of the version here of the Bond theme, and it's so perfect. You have the kind of motifs, building up when he's walking onto the steps, and then once he said the line, we have that pause in between. Once he says the line, then the Bond theme really just starts playing, and of course cutting to black, fading away into the credits, and then we hear the entire rest of the theme, and it's just, to see that, to hear some of it just before the credits, and for it to continue into the credits in this way, the surroundings, the setup, well, the entire film is a setup. You could say it's all been leading to this moment without even wanting or necessarily needing this moment, but this is, this is the signal, this is the symbol that represents that Bond is fully formed. He is finally here, and he is just, in true form, with the suit, with the style, the class, with the way he presents himself, and the confidence that Daniel Craig captures so perfectly. Bearing in mind, the kind of initial raw, savage, ruthless, reckless character that he was at first, letting his ego get in the way, of course, but he's gone through so much in this film. The journey of Bond, it's just so unbelievable, this film. The emotions I feel, the epic chills, the thrills, and of course, the sadness, the uplifting moments, the comedy, and of course, the very special mythic qualities that the best of Bond brings to the screen, and to go through this journey with Daniel Craig as Bond. It's just, he's so comforting as Bond, his interactions, the way he presents himself, you just rest at ease, just like, for example, Lazenby or Connery when he was at his best. These feelings of the best Bond performances, you feel the comfort actually from Bond, in his interactions with other characters, and just he's so likeable in this film. And again, Bond's a likeable character. He is a ruthless, hard-hitting, brutal, savage character, but he is likeable, in every film, and just this this charm, this kind of this class as well, and of course, in the end, we have that line, and that is it. That is the film, leading into the credits, and then once again, of course, hearing the Chris Cornell theme, and it's just, how many checkboxes can you have, and tick every single one here. It's just, this film goes so far beyond what I expect of a film actually, and so much so that it is, along with On Her Majesty, in my top 50 of all time, and that is a special achievement. There are many films that have not got into that, including many Bond films. There are around about 6 or so, or 7 in my top 100 or so, so far. But again, it takes a lot to get into my top 50, and 2 Bond films for me have, and just to see this, to see every single element, in this film, and in Bond as a universe, forming in this way, revealing and developing, of course. Progression. This is the key term that I use for this film. It's just such a genius film, but it's a free film in its spirit and in its structure, very much kind of meticulous, expertly crafted, masterfully constructed. It is very much a free-flowing film. It has a wonderful flow, organic feeling, a natural feeling. There are moments of rest, of course, for the characters, for the actual for the experience of the viewer, I guess, and also moments when you just can't contain yourself through the energy of the film, and the way in which it just picks you up and takes you along for the ride, action-wise, cinematically, emotionally, and spiritually. And of course, in the end, we've gone through so much of Bond, and of course, this being the roots of the character, this is such a perfect, kind of portrayal of Bond, but also getting what came before, and seeing why he is Bond in this way, and what led him to kind of form these traits and just what led him to become this character. This is a privilege. It's one of the rarest treats in cinema. It's a special occasion. That's an understatement. And of course, to see all of these emotions, all of these characters, the Bond universe presented in this way and revealed to us in a particular way. We go from the opening black and white sequence, seeing this really disturbing, perfectly designed sequence, very short, but so effective, short and sweet, leading into the credits. The gun barrel, one of my favourites. Actually, in fact, it could be my absolute favourite. And just how much chills I get from this. Just leading into the credits, which is one of the best opening titles, sequences that I've ever seen, I've ever witnessed, and of course the theme song being one of my favourites as well. Chris Cornell performing this, just so great. This is just one of my favourite songs. In cinema actually, and just hearing this, and then seeing Daniel Craig in colour, and then for him to just keep going through these sequences, but you learn so much about the character of Bond. You get these comforting feelings, at least I do, this uplifting nature to the film, just beauty, elegance, grace, but raw, savage, kind of direct emotions, direct feelings, direct presentation, but also a sophistication, a kind of sitting back and just a patience to the very nature of the film, and I think it's key in the way it kind of builds to the final emotion, the emotions of the film and the final act. It all culminates in such a kind of, in a way that I've rarely seen in any film, full stop. This is genius. Every single person involved in this film seems to be at the top of their game, and I think just, David Arnold, Daniel Craig, Eva Green, the list goes on. Mads Mikkelsen, he gives at least one of his best performances, and saying a lot because he's a great actor, and he's been some great films. One of the best Bond villains, and of course the score to the film being one of my absolute 3 favourite Bond scores, and just as I say, to witness all of these emotions, all of these characters interacting. The backdrop, yes, Montenegro, this casino, of course, this poker game, and of course, we don't want this to fall in the hands of this character, Le Chiffre, but while the stakes are so high and it's so investing in the plot, it's really the character being plot, and that is what drives the film. These interactions, seeing Bond progress, seeing this love story progress, seeing the inevitable and the betrayal of this, and the real the tragedy of this, but the beauty of the in between and the fleeting moments of love. It's all portrayed here so wonderfully. Every single person involved in this, as I say, it's just not a foot wrong. This is cinematic perfection, and we see Bond, we see him progress, becoming the character, maybe the greatest action hero in all of cinema, and becoming this suave, more of a confident character, in more control, this clean individual, and becoming the true Bond by the end of the film, truly becoming the character of James Bond. For me, this is one of the finest films ever made, a true magnum opus, and of course many who follow my channel will know when I say magnum opus, when I use that term, yes indeed, you'll know what I'm going to say. And this film here, Casino Royale, the debut Bond film essentially in the narrative sense, the one that really goes back to the roots, literally, of Bond, the first to star Daniel Craig, directed by Martin Campbell once again. This film here is one of the finest, and of course I give this film my absolute highest rating of 100% plus, tier S. Yes, a true magnum opus, as I say. This and another Bond film, as we've discussed, are both in my top 50 of all time, and some of my absolute most loved films. Only 2 Bond films get this rating, and that is a special achievement. My favourite franchise, to see the roots of this, the sense of wonder, and to see the character here progressing. Everything in this film, everything in this is progression. It's developing. It's revealing itself organically, naturally, and in such an epic and just magical fashion. The style to this film, the clothing, of course, the locations, just the commitment to kind of to bring out the sophistication, but starting off with this blunt instrument. This is just one of the greatest character studies in all of cinema. For Bond, for Jesper, for Mads Mikkelsen, and just the universe of Bond. To see the interactions with M and Bond in between them, it's just wonderful. Once again, you don't have Q, but you have Judi Dench as M, and you have all of these other elements, potentially you could say disguising themselves, but they're always there, and they always have been. And just seeing this film every time, it just becomes even more of a legendary experience. This is a magical film. It's uplifting. It's beautiful. It's such a human film. The level of human understanding in this is just, it's wonderful to see. You see films like this, and it pleases you. It makes you, it comforts you, and of course, there is the tragedy in it as well. This one really is a tragic film, as we know. The death of Jesper being one of the saddest and, for me, most affecting. Just events in all of cinema, of course, and just like another Bond film, it perfectly balances the action, the thrills, the mystery, the spy elements, the comedy, and of course the realism, and most of all, showing this love story. It is such a perfect balance, such a perfect culmination at the end, the realization, of course, and seeing Bond truly become Bond. It's such a treat. It's a special occasion like no other, and of course my favourite franchise, and seeing essentially the beginning of this, and yes, of course we have, now I have bought the book of Casino Royale, and we have that to read, so yes, and I can rewatch this film as much as I want, but of course in that sense there's also this, another element of Bond, and with that I will start reading the books finally, and I've been wanting to do that for many years, but I think now is right to kind of do this. It's the perfect time, and this film here, of course, being the beginnings of Bond, and every single element here is so perfectly done. This is cinematic perfection, to me, one of the absolute best films ever made, and a true magnum opus. We'll leave it there. We'll wrap up. What I go through with this film, the journey of this emotionally. In terms of the thrills, the action, the structure of the film is fascinating. The plot is so involving. All of the characters, the universe of Bond, the progression in the score by David Arnold, the legend that he is, and this is his absolute best. Score. Daniel Craig, easily his best performance that he's ever given of his entire career, and I was truly moved by this film. Once again, it's one of my absolute favourites. It's one of the most tragic films, but beautiful films, and just like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it does get the TRS rating, and that reflects my love and affection for this and for this franchise. The two defining Bonds for me, they are the best. Yes, of course, I'll be doing a ranking once again eventually, in a few months or so. But these two, I will say, they are very much in the same league, and I think they both deserve the equal amount of respect and admiration from me, because that is it's just my personal, kind of feelings for them. And of course, this film here, Casino Royale, it's just everything I want from a Bond film, and more. Wow, all these characters, the warmth, the charm, the style, the class. Of course, it goes from a raw, savage, kind of energy, that it has, of course, this brutal, hard-hitting film experience, to gradually, the sophistication, hearing the different Bond elements here, the parts of the theme, in particular moments. It's just genius. It's just so magical to see, picking up on all this every time. It really is just one of my absolute favourite films, and once again, it's grown on me even more. I truly love this film. It's one of the TRS films for me, so say no more. And what do you think? What do you think of this film? It'd be great to know. And for now, we'll end the review, and who knows how long that's been. But that's it. That's it. That's my thoughts for Casino Royale. But what do you think? It'd be great to know. Leave your thoughts if you want in the comments. And yes, of course, as I say, I will be beginning to read the books. I might do a video on that actually, and just kind of briefly, just kind of touch base with that and discuss the books, for example, or yes, kind of log my thoughts on that as I go along. And yeah, another kind of part of Bond, of course, being the novels, and yes, this film being the first, in the chronologically, the universe of this, and yes, such a stunning film. It'd be great to know what you think, and I look forward to the discussion on this. And of course, next up is Quantum of Solace. I'll be watching that once again tomorrow, and yes, I look forward to discussing Skyfall and Spectre as well, and of course, eventually. The next film in the franchise, No Time to Die. We'll see. But yes, as always, it's been great. And, as I say, this film means so much to me. It'd be great to know what you think of this, film. The journey of this, the wonder, it's just unmatched, really. And to see this film, to experience it, it's one of my favourite romances. The characters, the action, and just the whole emotion of this and the spirit of this film. It's truly a special achievement, and truly, just majestic and mind-blowing, of course, and it's truly something to behold. We'll leave it there, and we'll continue next time with Quantum of Solace. So yes, as always, take care, and yes, thanks for watching.